Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's Caleb. As you can see in front of you, it's been a pretty good year for tomatoes, both at my garden and my mother's garden. I've got quite a collection here. So, you know, when you have this many tomatoes, what are you supposed to do with them? And the answer to that is we're going to try doing some canning. So I'm going to do some canned stewed tomatoes. I need to get all these washed. You can see some of the hard water on these from the garden, but I'm going to take you through the process and we'll see how it goes. Alright, we'll see you in a second. Okay, real quick, I'm going to go over some of the components that we have here in order to make these stewed tomatoes. Obviously, we have tomatoes. I've got a bunch of different varieties here. Some of them cherry, some of them are black cherry that I've been growing in my container garden. These are really good. I'm gonna have to figure out a specific recipe, I think, for the smaller tomatoes. Hoping I can just pack them in whole. But I've got some heirloom tomatoes, grape tomatoes, and these ones all over here I think were more from my mom's garden. I don't know what variety they are. But I've also got some kosher sea salt that we'll be putting into the jars. I might mix that with some pink Himalayan salt as well. I think you're supposed to use about a teaspoon of salt per can. And then you can either use citric acid, or I just went and bought pure lemon juice. Thank you, King Supers. And if you can hear behind me, we've also got jars, but they are currently in the sanitized cycle in the dishwasher, so I'm going to get those nice and clean along with the lids. This one is already clean. So I've got some wide mouth jars, and I've also got some regular sized jars. So very important to make sure everything is super sanitary and sterilized, because botulism is not very fun. Alright guys, these are a couple additional ingredients I'm going to be including with the canned tomatoes. Pretty basic. Just some onion, some garlic, and I may use that lemon as well, just to give it extra fresh lemon juice in the jars. Alright, so first step here, we're going to get these things washed. And we're also going to make sure we remove all the stems. Don't want the stems in there, so give them a good spray down. And then obviously remove the stems. Alright, now we've got those washed off. I just wanted to show you, some of these tomatoes, since they are from a home garden, get a little bit blemished, it's got some dark spots, stuff like that. So what we're going to do, we're going to toss these in a boiling water to blanch them, and then toss them in cold water. And once I got the skins off, I'm going to just cut these areas out. Okay, so we got their clean tomatoes, and I just popped them in some boiling water. This is going to be the blanching process. So I'm going to let those sit in the boiling water for maybe a minute, 2 minutes, and then I'm going to transfer them over here in this ice bath, and what that accomplishes is the skins will then be able to peel off very easily. So I'll show you that in just a second. Alright, so now we got our tomatoes out of the boiling water, and they're in ice cold water, and as you can see, that just makes their skin peel right off. So now I'm just going to peel these and get them ready for cutting up into chunks. Alright, while these tomatoes are blanching, I just want to show you that I have roughly chopped up 2 white onions and probably about 10 or 12 cloves of garlic. I'm kind of a garlic head, so I love garlic. But these will join the tomatoes inside of our stew pot shortly. So, just wanted to show you that. I am also going to add some fresh basil to my canned tomatoes. I forgot that I was growing it, but I've got a couple basil plants out in my yard. So, you know, fresh basil, why not? It looks good, it smells good, so I'm going to chop this up and throw it in to my stock pot as well. Alright you guys, so the dishwasher is finishing up its cycle. So you see I got my cans here, and we're getting close to being ready to put in the stewed tomatoes inside, and then we're going to do the canning process in my large stock pot, and then we'll be done. Alright, we got our glass jars out of the dishwasher, and I've also got all my other canning tools. I'm going to give this a quick rinse off, but this will help me pour the tomatoes into the jar like such. And you can get these little canning kits at, you know, your local grocery store, Walmart, wherever. This is to help pack it down, get rid of air bubbles. This is for grabbing. It's just a little magnet to help you grab your lids. And probably the most important thing are the actual tongs that you will use to lift your jars out of the hot water bath. So I'm getting in this large stock pot here, I'm starting to bring that to a boil, and then down here I'm also just doing a double sanitation run for the lids, so I'm putting those in boiling water, and I'm going to leave that at a running boil until I actually need to use the jars. Okay, so now I got my tomatoes and I got them in a big stock pot here, and we are going to start to cook these down. I put a little bit of olive oil at the bottom just to help it cook, but we'll use a wooden spoon, kind of mash these down. Some people like to cut them into quarters, but these were so ripe, they're pretty soft, so I'm throwing them in whole. So I'll continue to add my blanched tomatoes and fill this guy up, and we'll get cooking. As you can see, I got my tomatoes stewing here. I've got a couple more that I'm going to get blanched and finish off this batch. So I've added a pretty generous amount of the kosher salt and some of the sea salt as well. I'm also kind of feeling like adding some mountain seasoning. So I've got savory spices, Italian mountain seasoning. So I'm going to kind of sprinkle some of that in there as well. Maybe I'll do the other side here. And, you know, that's totally optional, but that's also, it's sea salt, a little bit of black pepper, garlic, onion, balsamic vinegar powder, or pepper, rosemary, basil. So give it a little bit of an Italian kind of vibe. I'm just going to mix that in. And continue to let these cook down. I'm still waiting on my canning jars in the dishwasher. They're still washing, so this is going to stew for a while. Alright, stewed tomatoes are looking pretty good. It sure smells really nice, especially after I added that fresh basil. So, if you want to find a good way to go insane, you can get a bunch of cherry tomatoes and pick all the stems. This is going to take freaking forever. Now with each jar we're going to add approximately 2 tablespoons of our lemon juice. So, easier just to put it in beforehand. And we can also add a little bit more salt to the bottom of the can. I did add a lot of salt while these were cooking, so I think we should have plenty in there. But don't forget the lemon juice, that helps with the acidity. Alright, now we're going to get these into the cans. Okay, now we're going to add our stewed tomatoes and put them in the can. And I don't know how messy this is going to be. I assume, knowing me, it's going to be messy. Jesus. Looks like I've got some cleanup to do. Now, I also want you guys to notice that I'm going to leave about ½ inch of headspace in there. Alright, now we're going to grab our lids that have been in the boiling water, and we're going to cap these suckers. And we're going to screw the lids on, but very lightly, just enough to keep water from getting into them. And then these are now ready to put into our hot water bath. And we're going to get these sitting at about 45 minutes, rolling boil, and then they should be ready. Alright, moment of truth, guys. Now we've got our lids on, not screwed on too tight, and we're going to get these into the water bath for a good 45 minutes. Bon voyage, Mr. Tomato. And I'm hoping it's a little tricky with this stock pot. I don't want it yet. So I'm going to have to remove a little bit of the water from this pot. And that's okay. Not a big deal. Okay guys, so now we're going to get these into the water bath. And it's a little bit tricky. You don't want the weight displacing the water out of the jar or out of the stock pot, so I might have to remove a little bit of it here. We will see. I think I'm going to actually remove some right now. But once they're in there, 45 minutes, we're cooking. So guys, that took care of the big tomatoes, but I've still got all of these cherry and grape tomatoes. So instead of making stewed tomatoes with them, I'm going to pickle them. And I actually found a really cool recipe from Southern Country Living channel. I'll link down below to that video, but I'm going to give that a go and see how many jars of pickled cherry tomatoes I can make. So guys, just real quick, I wanted to show you what I'm doing with the cherry tomatoes. I made a brine out of apple cider vinegar and water and kosher salt. And obviously I've got my quart jar, and I'm just going to fill up these jars with the brine, and then I'm going to boil them in the hot water bath, and those should pickle.